There's a moment that happens to a lot of women, usually right before their period starts. You're on a phone call, maybe with a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, and they pause mid-conversation and ask, "Are you okay? You sound different." And you think, "Do I?" Or maybe you're a singer and you notice your vocal warm-ups feel harder than usual. Your range feels smaller. There's this subtle thickness in your throat that wasn't there last week. For a long time, women noticed these changes but didn't talk about them much. And when they did, the response was often dismissive. Just hormones, just stress, just in your head. But here's what's actually happening. Your voice does change during your menstrual cycle. Not dramatically, not in a way most people would consciously notice, but measurably, scientifically, undeniably. And the reason why reveals something fascinating about how deeply our hormones shape even the smallest parts of who we are. Let me tell you about a study from the 1940s that almost no one talks about. A group of researchers decided to record women's voices throughout their entire menstrual cycle. Every few days, the same women would come in and read the same passage aloud. Then the researchers would analyze the recordings, measuring pitch, tone, and vocal quality. What they found was striking. During certain phases of the cycle, voices became noticeably lower and slightly hoarser. The changes were subtle, yes, but they were consistent. They followed a pattern. The researchers called this laryngopathia premenstrualis. It sounds medical and serious because at the time, any change in a woman's body was treated like a disorder that needed fixing. But this wasn't a disorder. This was just biology doing what biology does. Fast forward to today, and we have much better technology and far more research. And what we've learned is that your vocal cords, those delicate folds of tissue in your larynx, are incredibly sensitive to hormonal changes, specifically to estrogen and progesterone. Your voice isn't separate from your body, it's part of your body. And just like your skin might break out before your period, or your joints might feel looser during ovulation, your vocal cords respond to the hormonal waves that move through what happens. Throughout your menstrual cycle, estrogen and progesterone rise and fall in predictable patterns. These hormones don't just affect your reproductive system, they have receptors all over your body, including in the tissues of your larynx and vocal cords. During the first half of your cycle, when estrogen is rising, your vocal cords are at their most flexible and hydrated. Your voice tends to be clearer, brighter, and you might even notice your range feels easier to access. Singers often report that this is when they feel most vocally confident. Then comes ovulation. Estrogen peaks. For many women, this is when their voice feels its best. But after ovulation, things shift. Progesterone starts to rise and estrogen begins to drop. Progesterone causes fluid retention throughout your body, and yes, that includes your vocal cords. They can become slightly swollen, slightly thicker. This is why your voice might sound lower or feel less agile during the week before your period. Some women also experience what's called vocal fatigue during this phase. Speaking or singing feels like more effort. There's a heaviness to it. And then, right before or during menstruation, some women notice their voice feels scratchy or breathy. The vocal cords might be slightly inflamed and the mucous membranes in your throat can become drier. None of this is harmful, none of this is wrong. It's just your body responding to hormonal changes the same way it always does. Okay, so my voice changes a little. So what? And for most women, most of the time, it doesn't matter much. You might not even notice. But for professional voice users, singers, teachers, podcasters, public speakers, this matters a lot. There are opera singers who've had to cancel performances because their vocal range literally disappeared right before their period. There are teachers who notice they lose their voice more easily during certain weeks of the month. And for years, these women were told they were being dramatic. They were told to just push through it, to train harder, to be more disciplined. But you can't discipline your way out of biology. What's interesting is that male voices change too, just not cyclically. Testosterone affects the vocal cords, which is why men's voices deepen during puberty. But after that, men's hormones stay relatively stable day to day. They don't experience these monthly fluctuations. So women who work with their voices professionally have had to navigate something that their male colleagues simply don't experience. And until recently, there's been almost no acknowledgement of this in vocal training, in performance schedules, in the way we think about vocal health. There's a bigger point here too. This is just one example of how women's bodies have been treated as the exception to the normal male baseline. For decades, medical research was done primarily on men, and findings were just assumed to apply to women too. But women's bodies aren't just smaller versions of men's bodies. They're fundamentally different in important ways. And those differences aren't weaknesses, they're just differences. When we understand how our voices change and why, we can work with our bodies.
These changes in your own voice. Here's what actually helps. First, track your cycle and track your voice. Keep a simple log. Notice when your voice feels easiest and when it feels more challenging. This awareness alone can be incredibly validating. You're not imagining it. Second, during the luteal phase, that week or two before your period, be a little gentler with your voice. If you're a singer, maybe don't schedule your most demanding performances during this time if you can help it. If you're a teacher or speaker, stay extra hydrated and take more vocal breaks. Speaking of hydration, this is crucial. Drink more water than you think you need. Your vocal cords need to stay lubricated, and when progesterone is causing fluid retention elsewhere, your throat can dry out. Some vocal coaches recommend vocal steaming during the premenstrual phase. Breathing in warm, moist air can soothe inflamed vocal cords and reduce that scratchy feeling. And here's something most people don't know. Hormonal birth control can affect your voice too. Because it regulates your hormones, it can reduce those cyclical vocal changes. Some singers have reported more vocal stability on birth control, but for others, the constant hormone levels can create different vocal challenges. It's individual. The point isn't that you need to fix anything. The point is that you can make informed choices about how you use your voice throughout the month. There's something quietly powerful about
women have been
understanding
taught
this.
to ignore their body's signals, to push through, to act like hormonal changes are inconveniences rather than information. But your body is always communicating with you. The changes in your voice are just one small language your body speaks. And when you start paying attention, you notice other patterns too. Maybe your creativity peaks at certain times of the month. Maybe your energy for social interaction waxes and wanes. Maybe your relationship to your own thoughts and emotions shifts in predictable ways. This isn't about making excuses or limiting yourself. It's about knowing yourself deeply enough to work with your natural rhythms instead of constantly fighting them. Your voice changing during your cycle isn't a flaw in the design. It's part of the design. It's evidence of how interconnected everything in your body really is. Hormones don't just live in one system. They travel everywhere, touching everything, including the words you speak. So the next time someone asks if you're okay because you sound different, you can smile and say, "I'm fine, it's just my cycle." And maybe, just maybe, we can start having more conversations about this. Because the more we understand about how women's bodies actually work, the more we can build a world that accommodates that reality instead of ignoring it. Your voice is yours, and it's allowed to change.